connection. I'm Mira Rubin. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is observers. And I read an article this morning that is about a new study that says that, or is putting forward the idea that the world is created by networks of observers and that we actually observe the world into being. So it brings the whole idea of manifesting to a completely different dimension. So it should be a really exciting thing to explore together. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing your cells, nourishing your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, any negativity or fatigue. Let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up, every cell, every electron, every molecule, just lighting you up with incredible energy of vital life force. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, or fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel how delicious that sensation is and to bring you present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome. So how cool is that, that there is it was published, this paper was published in a scientific journal, actually, of physics, I think. I'm not certain what the name of the journal was, but I love this because it makes sense to me. And one of the things we've been talking about a lot is thinking outside the box, thinking beyond consensus thinking, beyond consensus reality, and being able to create the possibilities out of nothing. So the beauty of this is, and I think it was yesterday I was just talking about how awareness is the first step to transformation, because as we become aware of something, then then we're thinking about it, and we have the opportunity to change the way that that thing is perceived, and we have the ability to shift. And so it's, you may have heard of the 100th monkey principle or story, and it's probably folklore by, I don't know if it's true or not true, but the story goes that there were there were monkeys on this island, and over time these monkeys developed a pattern of washing their food, and once a couple monkeys started doing it, more monkeys on the island started doing it, and then all of a sudden, supposedly, it was observed on another island where there were other monkeys, and there had been no transit of monkeys from one island to the other. The monkeys on the other island, all of a sudden, after a certain critical mass of monkeys on the first island was reached, all of a sudden the monkeys on the other island started washing their food. And if we can think of thoughts as things that are bringing reality into a physical manifestation, then then we get to recognize the power of our thoughts and the importance of looking beyond the consensus, to question some of the, to question and to be creative and generative in the way we're perceiving and thinking about reality. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome, welcome. I was talking about an article I read that was about an article that was recently published on a study that is saying that, or exploring the idea. I didn't get to read the study, so I don't know the details of it, but it had to do with physics, um, and that reality, the nature of reality, is actually the result of networks of observers. So these observers, we are they, um, are are colluding together, or networking together to create some kind of consensus and of what reality is. And with that notion, I find it tremendously helpful, because I believe that the thing that is going to change our experience, I've been saying this for a while, that the thing is that's going to be able to bring us into the transformation that we need on the planet is a shift of paradigm, a shift of the way we think. And here, this is science-based validation of that idea. Maggie's all over it. She's like, yeah, yeah. That's see, she's in full agreement. She's creating a world where she gets fed well and loved and all kinds of other things. But I'm just thinking how important the shifts of perception that we talk about so regularly are to being able to bring into existence this new reality. And what incredible power. I mean, I think we've probably all been exposed to the studies that have been done on meditation and prayer, where there was a big group of meditators. I don't remember what city it was, but they I don't remember how long they were meditating, but um, the crime rate in the nearby city went down dramatically. uh, I was at a Joe Dispenza week-long retreat, and we did a coherence healing for lots of different people. And I've been on a chat with the folks that I attended this thing with, and there are all kinds of folks who have had very dramatic health transformations. A woman who had a very rare form of cancer that healed through these coherence healings, and the I mean, she went through chemo, but she had a very unusual and aggressive form of cancer, and had been told by her medical practitioners that um, of the sequence of the 8 treatments which she completed, people don't generally live past the 6th one. And then afterward, her cancer was gone. They said she was an utter and complete anomaly, because people don't, here's the consensus. The consensus is people don't heal from that cancer. And so if we think about the is it the 3-minute mile or the 2-minute mile? I've talked about that, or the 4-minute mile. I don't know. I've talked about this before. I'm not a sports person, so I apologize if I have the number wrong, but it was an impossibility until one person broke the record, and then a whole bunch of other people all of a sudden were breaking that record over and over. And so what happened was reality changed because somebody proved it possible. And that's like the power of one person to make a difference. And so even if we're talking about making change in the world, having conversations about the possibility of that change, and not being bound by the conventional thinking about things, which is so much doom and gloom in so many ways, that by spreading ideas in itself is a transformational act, because it starts to shift the field that is is the energy of that thought that is creating the reality that we experience. And I think when we have experiences where we manifest our visions or our desires, when we bring them into being, into physical form, what we recognize is that we are shaping reality. And the more we recognize our capacity to do that, the more we can bring forward the world we desire. And the more we recognize um, how impactful, whether for the good or the bad, it is to be joining in, for instance, in these um, confrontations that we have been having with issues around freedom and issues around health and what we believe. Like, we're caught up in this global pandemic, and there's a general belief or a predominant belief that that we need to be addressing it in certain very specific ways. And then there are other ideas and beliefs and evidences of other approaches as well. And so there's this whole thing going on. There's a big uh, um, campaign to reinforce the strength of the general consensus reality around this whole pandemic. And I'm also aware that there are other perceptions that may be gaining some momentum. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of censorship happening in order to bolster the consensus reality that's being cultivated. But I think that thinking, really thinking, paying attention, observing, looking for, like allowing yourself to see beyond the edges of the box is actually a radical act. And it's a supremely creative act. And it gives me hope, because when we recognize that we're creating this, we get to choose differently, right? And to say, hey, what would I prefer? What would I prefer? What would I rather have? How would I rather think? And I think in entertaining this idea, it gives us a deeper understanding of our impact. And people say, you know, people often fall into resignation about issues that um, they feel helpless. We've been conditioned to believe that we're helpless and ineffectual. And the beauty of this whole idea of the observers creating reality, they're not them. The observers are not them. The observers are us. And we get to claim our place as one of those observers that's shaping reality. And collectives of observers shaping reality. And what happens when you bring together groups of observers, of people who have a vision of possibility, who have the vision of a world that truly works, of a world that's magical, of a world that's um, life affirming, that is uh, oriented toward thriving. We're in that era. This is what is happening. This is where so much of the disruption is coming from. Is the old thought forms are being challenged and are kind of in their last throes. At least that's how I choose to perceive it. And we're shaping. a new world. We're bringing into the mainstream the notion of connectedness, of interconnectedness, of a holistic view of a living planet, of so many hopeful things. And it's just a matter of if this is true, and I'm tending to believe that it is, that if we have more, the more and more people we have who can envision this new possibility, this new world, this thriving, wonderful environment, healthy environment, etc., the more we can um, bring about that change. And I don't know about you, but I find that particularly inspiring. What do you think? What this we've been, probably most of us who are joining in these conversations have some lend credibility or credence the um, to the science of manifesting, and or to the action of manifesting. And this just adds such wonderful fuel to the fire. And in my experience, and I'm guessing, but I'd like to hear from you, you may have been experiencing something similar, that it seems like cause and effect is ramping up. It seems like things are happening more quickly. It seems like maybe the veil is thinner and we get to influence reality even more directly than we have in the past. And that there's this momentum of change that is happening. And that to me indicates that we have greater and greater impact, that we have a greater capacity to be the observers that are shaping reality. So I've talked about consensus thinking and how we get to move out of consensus thinking, and shape a new reality. So the call is ever more urgent, or ever um, more important to be circumspect, to be looking at the things we do and why we do them or how we do them. And maybe, like, especially when we look at things that seem as if they have no solution, or things that are being done the way they've always been done, merely because that's how it's always been, or that's as far as our memory goes, for example. And I've shared this story before, and you probably already know it. And it's interesting how um, it's I guess it's a folklore kind of story about the woman who is making pot roast and cuts off the end of the pot roast. And somebody asks, well, why did you cut off the end of the pot roast? And it's because my mother always did it. And so she gets curious, and she goes and she asks her mom, and her mom says, because my mother always did it. And they went to ask her, and the reason that she did it was because she had a pan that the whole pot roast wouldn't fit in, so she had to cut off the end of it. And so this became a pattern and a tradition and a behavior that was ridiculous in after the pan was no longer an issue, right? But there wasn't the questioning of the status quo, so to speak. So Rosalind says, I made a shift to take more responsibility to have a greater impact. Life is happening for me, not to me, was the shift I made. Congratulations for you, Rosalind. I say it uh, with a little bit of an addition. I say life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And good for you. good for you, because really that makes a profound shift when um, we take responsibility, when we give ourselves the ability to respond to life, when we empower ourselves to know that life is happening for us and through us, that we can be more present. We allow ourselves to be more present, and we can create the shift of experience then. If I operate from the place of I create my reality, that's another place from which I take more responsibility, and I can see different ways in which I shape the world. So welcome, Dido. So good to have you here. This is so awesome. So Dido says, wow, it's making me think about the power of listening, or of why witnessing someone's story can be so powerful. It's not just that person, no, it's not just that the person no longer feels alone, but we get to co create a new ending in the present. Dido so beautifully said, so beautifully said. Um, I agree that in hearing other people's stories and being able to create transformation, we are transforming the field. And I think it also gives us a greater responsibility if we believe or want to operate from this uh, observer factor being true, then we have a greater responsibility about the things we buy into, and that means also the negativity that we might buy into. And interestingly enough, I know I shared a week ago, it was exactly a week ago, about we were talking about conflict, because I was in this group, and this conflict arose. And I what the conflict was about was that there was such intense negativity and agreement. Good morning, Robin. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. We're talking about the observer effect. I should have called it that instead of observers, but the observer effect is that there's a new study that is I don't know if it's trying to prove or just uh, put out the hypothesis that we as observers, that reality is created by a network of observers, essentially through consensus of this observer group. Anyway, not an elite group, we're all part of it. That's, we are co-creating. And so what the conflict was over was the darkness, like really reinforcing this group of really light bearers, talking about darkness and being overwhelmed by the darkness and the heaviness and the dark energies and all of this stuff. And I was feeling it, having just come back from the Joe Dispenza thing. I was feeling it so intensely, as look at what we're creating. Look at this reality that we are um, propagating through our consensus agreement to capitulation. And I couldn't take it. It was like it was something that I felt so deeply. And I just tried to, it became like this has to stop. And so people reacted to me because I was reactive, right? So but that's what it was about. And then to see that article this morning, I'm so excited to take it to the group, and to sort of reignite that conversation about how we shape reality through our consensus. And it's therefore really important. I know I keep saying the same thing, but it's really important to be looking at what are we buying? What are we believing? What are we conceding to? What are we capitulating with? You know, like so much of what is going on in the world right now that we we just become sheeple, you know, like we just sort of follow the lead, and that's what everybody's doing, so that's what we're going to do. Where by by thinking by thinking independently, and then maybe we have the ability to shape a new consensus. How about that? And so this is really interesting. I know I've talked about my friend Helen, who was so powerfully effective in banning fracking, or getting fracking banned in New York, because she did not comply with the consensus thinking that was saying you can't regulate the oil and gas industry. You can't stop fracking. You can um, only make you know, set some boundaries. You can only negotiate with it. You can't stop it. You can't ban it. And she was like, no, no, that's not okay. And there's so much about how, you know, people believe this is how it is, and that's it, that's how it is. So, and who am I, what can I do? Well, the thing is, the one thing that we can do is we can think more freely, that we can free ourselves and think more freely, and from that place we can create a new consensus of a world that is moving toward thriving, instead of moving off the cliff, right? And I just find this so interesting. And I've always been interested in physics, and this is kind of, I guess it's a some kind of theoretical quantum physics sort of stuff. I'm going to dig more deeply into it, because um, I want to know on an ever more deepening level that we are shaping the world, and that we have the power to do it, and we can shape a new world that works. And so, like what you're saying there, Dido, is, you know, that we are reshaping reality when we have a heart to heart conversation. And Jocelyn, when we take on the responsibility for our own creatorship in our lives, that it is transformative to the whole field, and we get to be the 100 monkeys, you know, and maybe then it becomes 1,000 monkeys and 1,000,000 monkeys. And um, let's start monkeying around, shall we? So I think that's it for today. So much love and such joy from me to be sharing this time with you, and such gratitude and appreciation. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. Maggie and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And I so look forward to being here again with you really, really soon.